Welcome to the Stress Wellness Workshop. My name is Natalia Newcomb, and I am one of the doctoral interns here at CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services. This is an educational workshop aimed to give you some information related to coping skills and tools to manage your current stressors. I wanted to let you know that this will be an interactive workshop for which you will need to download our Stress Wellness PDF packet from our website. So I have a hard copy here with me, and so it looks like this. So look for something like this that can be downloaded from our website. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and take a moment to do that right now. I will be asking you to fill out certain portions of this packet in our time together. So I will be using this packet as well as PowerPoint slides in our time together. So let me share those slides with you on the screen. And here it goes. There we are. So I would like you to know that this is one of 3 wellness workshops that we put together. I would encourage you to check out the other 2. One is on thought wellness and the other one is on mood wellness. So please refer to those additional resources and tools to increase your wellness. So first, let's review our objectives for today. Today we'll be learning about the specific triggers that may increase your stress. Those are different for everyone, so it's important to be aware and start there. Then we will spend some time developing self-care plan specifically for you, and those also will depend on your own vulnerabilities as well as your own unique stressors. Then we will go over some stress management and relaxation strategies to help you deal with stress. So, what is stress? Could you answer that question to yourself? What does stress look like for you? What causes you to be stressed? We know that stress is a response that results from an interaction between an individual and their environment. It is a response that when we perceive something as threatening or demanding, our bodies and our mind have a reaction or a response to that demand. So it is some kind of stimuli that is in front of us that we perceive or view it as threatening or frightening. And when that happens, there is a certain physical, emotional, behavioral, and cognitive response that occurs. And that is called the stress response. So when our bodies go into this type of stress response, there are certain things that we begin to experience. There might be some personal differences, but generally, there are a lot of similarities in the stress response. So let's look at those different levels of responses more closely. So on a physical level, the experience of stress response can manifest through fatigue, difficulties falling asleep. For some, it's kind of uncomfortable sensations, including chest pains, headaches, migraines, tightness of muscles, sweating, just to name a few. And if this intense level of stress goes on for a long time, they can develop into some serious health issues, including risk for heart disease. That's more in a kind of extreme. Second, stress can be experienced on an emotional level. Such emotional response to the stressful events can include anxiety, depression, sadness, irritability, and really our mood can also fluctuate easily. And third, stress can be experienced on a behavioral level. So it's not only our bodies and emotions that respond to stress, but we start engaging in things that we typically wouldn't do. This can include trying to cope with the stress using alcohol or substances, or is forming some kind of unhealthy habits like overeating and efforts to cope. Or we can procrastinate and avoid different responsibilities. We may lose motivation and or lose appetite so that we're not taking care of our bodies in the way that we typically would. So although this may be efforts to deal with stress in the moment, all these behaviors actually result only in increased level of stress. And lastly, stress can be experienced on a cognitive level that changes our thought process. So some examples can include increased fear, specifically fear of failure, or harshness and criticism towards ourselves, kind of our inner dialogue and what we say to ourselves. And also we may begin to be forgetful or having difficulty to focus, and some other preoccupation with certain thoughts or feelings that will get our mind stuck. So as a result, we are not able to think of productive solutions to the demands that are set before us. So it's important to be aware of what occurs for you in all of these four domains when you are experiencing increase in stress. So the variations and differences at the four levels of stress response really depend on a person. Because we have different life stories, we have different past experiences, and what is stressful for me may not be stressful for you or anyone else. So we need to pay attention and really be curious to what is stressful for us personally. Another point I quickly wanted to make, it is helpful to see stress on a continuum. Stress is a normal response that we have based on various demands of life. And actually, a little bit of stress is healthy. And actually, we need some stress in our lives. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But now let's talk and look closely about what the stress response looks like for you. If you open your wellness workshop document that I asked you to download earlier, and on the second page, you will see signs of stress. So these are just options that are listed for you. And go ahead and on the third page, identify your own personal experiences of stress in all the four domains, in the behavioral, emotional, physical, and cognitive. And use the provided space to fill in your response. So go ahead and take the time, use the previous page to refer back for examples, and transfer over what applies to you on this third page. And of course, if there are things that are not listed on there, but you do know that about yourself and experience those things, go ahead and put those there as well. So I'm going to take a minute to do that. So as you're answering number one, fill in those categories. As you're finishing up, we're going to move on to number two. And here, go ahead and take a moment to reflect on how do you currently manage your stress. And write a few examples. And take a moment, another minute to finish that up. And moving on to number 3. What are some ways that you can try to ease some symptoms of your stress? Maybe that's something that's helped you in the past, or something that you really wanted to try but never had a chance to, or perhaps things you've seen your friends or family do to cope with stress. Go ahead and write your answer. So take another moment to do that. It is important to understand what we do that already works and what we've tried that doesn't work. So we started out with listing things that you already do and maybe know about yourself. So moving on, let's talk a little bit about the helpfulness of stress. So stress, like I mentioned previously, exists on a continuum, and it can be very helpful. We actually need stress, and we operate best when we experience an optimal range of stress. If you look at the stress curve illustration, it tells us that if we experience too little stress, it can cause boredom. We may not feel productive or have any purpose in our life, which can cause us to feel insignificant and disconnected from ourselves, life, and others. So we may not feel our best if we're consistently at a low stress level. And this can actually lead to depression. On the other side of the continuum, we see that too high of a stress level can produce anxiety, panic, anger, and burnout. So this is a time that is a normal response to stressors, but having such emotions consistently for long periods of time, it's not healthy, and it can cause serious physical and mental health consequences. So being at either sides of the spectrums for too long can cause negative effects. So we really don't want the stress to be at a zero, or have so much energy and so much stress and so much stimulation that we can experience burnout. So what we really are trying to understand, how do we stay in this optimal performance range, optimal level of stress? So that's where we want to be. And now let's look at some of the things we can do for ourselves that can nurture and fuel our energy and get us there, get us to stay in the middle. So we can engage in life to a greater capacity with more meaning. So most people want to be challenged to grow, to accomplish and improve in one way or another. And there is certain satisfaction we get from meeting goals and doing what's meaningful for us. And for that to happen, we need to understand what is our optimal performance range. And we need to remember that this may look different for different people. So one way to bring yourself to the optimal level of performance is to reduce stress and engage in self-care. So let's talk about self-care. When I say the word self-care, what comes up for you? Do you notice a certain internal reaction that is evoked with that word? And I bring that up because in my past experience, for some, the word self-care brings up feelings of guilt. And that is important to notice and think a little deeply about what do we believe about self-care. I often hear that doing something self-care can be selfish, and that therefore the guilt comes. And actually, the definition of self-care is of a person, action, or a motive lacking, the definition of selfishness is of a person lacking consideration for others, and their concern is only with their own personal profit and pleasure. That's an important definition to keep in mind if selfishness is what comes up for you. So, taking care of ourselves is a completely different than actually having this lack of consideration for others. And selfishness is more based on personality and characteristic types, while self-care is an activity to nourish and take care of ourselves, recognizing that individual basic needs need to be met because they are a human being. And the list that we will go over just in a few moments will give you some ideas that maybe you need to pay attention a little more to. So self-care refers to the activities and practices that we engage in on a regular basis to maintain and enhance personal short and long-term health and well-being. So it's all about well-being and maintaining our humanity, our dignity. And to get us to see it in a slightly different way, I like to use the example of a car. For those of us who drive, we understand that we rely on our car to get us from place A to place B. So, what does the car require to be reliable and working? Some of you may say being filled up with gas on a regular basis. Some may say an oil change, a regular oil change, maybe a tire rotation, different filters to be changed. And so there are a couple other things, as we know, that go into maintaining a car. We never think of a car to be so selfish. We never say, this car is so selfish. It needs another tank of gas. We usually understand that there are certain things that a car needs, and driving it a certain distance will use up the gas. And the maintenance and refilling that tank is important. Otherwise, we're stuck. So, with that said, sometimes we don't think of ourselves and our bodies as a vehicle that needs to be maintained and recharged. But truly, our bodies are a vehicle that gets us from one place to another. So, refueling and nourishing our bodies is essential to getting ourselves to the accomplishments and goals that we set for ourselves. So I hope that this car example was helpful to recognize that it's important to understand the practice and practice self-care. And actually, in some professions, self-care is an ethical guideline. So that's something that's written in professional's manual. Something to think about. So when we talk about self-care, we know that there is no one size fits all for self-care. So what helps you take care of yourself emotionally, physically, spiritually, personally may not be helpful for another person. And with that, each of us has to develop their own personal plan. Like I said, because based on our unique history, we have our own unique challenges, distinct demands that we face on a daily life, and stressors, different vulnerabilities. So we are going to focus on creating that plan for you. So go ahead and in the next page of your worksheet, go to the page that says self-care assessment. So we need to become more aware of the areas of your life that are important to you in doing self-care. So go ahead and turn to this page. And this is an assessment. It's a tool that provides an overview of some effective strategies to maintain and practice self-care. So these may be things that you already do, or maybe you've done them in the past. But right now, we're going to take a moment, or a few moments, I should say, to use a scale on a 0 through 3 to rate the list of activities that are listed there. So 0 would be that you would never do this activity. And 3 is that you do this frequently on, let's say, everyday basis. So go ahead and take the time, go through the different categories, including physical, psychological, spiritual, emotional, and professional self-care, and rate each item using this scale. Take a minute or a few minutes to do this right now. And also I wanted to say that as you go through this list, there may be some self-critical thoughts that you experience, like, why haven't I done this yet? I am failing at this too. And I would encourage you to kind of recognize those thoughts and recognize the inner critic that shows up, and then shift yourself to reminding yourself that this is designed to help you bring your awareness to different options of self-care. These are some ideas that may benefit you. So look at this in this assessment in that way. The first category is physical self-care. Notice that there is space for other. Feel free to write in something that is not already listed there, but if you are aware and you are practicing something, go ahead and write that out there as well. And then the second domain is psychological self-care. Go ahead and use the same 0 through 3 rating scale to reach each of these activities. And notice that if we're moving too fast, feel free to pause the video, complete it, and then come back to the video. There's a second page, and on the second page we start with emotional self-care. Go ahead and do the same rating. Another category that is listed on there is spiritual self-care. So that may apply to some of you and that may not apply for others. And if it doesn't apply, it can be a helpful way to generate new ideas. But if it's not helpful, go ahead and skip that. Then another domain there is the workplace, the school or professional self-care. Go Go ahead and take a few moments to complete the readings for those items as well. And lastly, on that page, it brings your attention to the idea of balance. As you reflect on that, go ahead and give yourself a rating on the sense of balance in your life. So take another moment to finish up. So let's take a moment to reflect on your experience of doing this assessment overall. What came up for you? Any areas that you noticed that you already practice? Were there anything that was surprising about the self-assessment to you? Go ahead and give a moment to just think and reflect. And if it's helpful, go ahead and write down some of those thoughts. Now, go ahead and go to the next page of your worksheet. We're going to be looking at some steps to help you further develop your own self-care plan. So the quote that's written on the top that I would like to highlight is, "Do what you can with what you have where you are." And then this quote brings up a point that self-care does not have to look the same all the time for you. It is flexible and it is dynamic, meaning that it's important to adjust self-care based on your circumstances, based on the present moment and the demands in the now. So right now, there's a lot of uncertainty going on in the world, and it's important to know that human beings like certainty. We are hardwired for wanting to know what's going to happen next and when, and the details of all of it. So things may feel threatening to us when we don't know what is going to happen, and this can increase stress. So when things feel uncertain and unpredictable, generally we don't feel safe. And it's actually normal to feel a little more stressed at times like these when we're dealing with a COVID-19 pandemic. And this is stressful. It's important to notice that when stress is leading us to engage in activities that we normally wouldn't, and the kind of impact they have on us as a result. So uncertainty and unease about one area of our life can cause similar feelings in other areas of life. And the uncertainty also can remind us of all the other things that we feel uneasy about. And this can be related to past or future. So sometimes times like these increase stress due to uncertainty. We want to give ourselves some extra time for self-care and engage in different things that provide that self-care for us. We also don't always know what is happening, and things are changing constantly. And so we may feel on edge or angry or hopeless, sad, and we may even want to avoid things completely. And that's okay to understand that that may be our tendency. And at the same time, we want to reflect on what is important to us for us to do right now. And how can we take care of ourselves? How can we give ourselves and others the time to do that? It's important to know that we are not helpless and we can focus on the things that we can control. And creating this self-care plan is actually something that we can control right now. And there are things that we can do to nourish ourselves, even in this time of uncertainty. So, with that, go ahead and turn to question 1 on the Develop a Self-Care Plan page and list the habits that you're currently using right now to manage your stress and to stay healthy. And you can look back and refer to the self-assessment that you just did for ideas and for things to put on in this section. Go ahead and take a minute to fill that out. So moving on to number 2, list self-care habits that you would like to use but are not currently practicing. Sometimes that may be scored low on the self-assessment that you just did. Something maybe that you've used to do but haven't done so in a while or would like to start up doing. So go ahead and take a moment to list those on number 2. It doesn't have to be an extensive list. So moving on to number 3, identify the obstacles that keep you from practicing these habits, the habits that you listed in number 2. So for example, here you have an example that is written for you. I am not taking a spin class now because I feel like I don't have the time and I think it might be too expensive. So that's an example. So go ahead and list some of the things, some of the obstacles and barriers for you personally. Make sure to use the format that's provided if it's helpful. I am not ... because ... Let's take another minute to finish question 3. And so moving on to question 4. Here you're thinking about solutions that you can come up with to address those obstacles that you just listed. Here, we're really wanting to be proactive about some of the barriers to taking care of ourselves. So following the example that is listed, go ahead and list your own. It doesn't have to be an extensive list. If you came up with just a few, that would be sufficient. Let's take another minute to complete number 4. And we're moving on to number 5. For number 5, take a moment to reread the self-care habits you just wrote down for item 2. And then select just one of those habits you would like to begin practicing even today, right now, and complete the sentence below. Today, I commit to ... Go ahead and finish this sentence. And as you're finishing up that sentence, go ahead and go to the next sentence that's following by this sentence. I want to do this because... Go ahead and complete the sentence. And moving on to the last sentence, I will accomplish this by ... Go ahead and write down your answer. So now you have completed your personal self-care plan. And just a quick reminder that you can make adjustment to this plan anytime you need to. You can refer back to the self-care assessment periodically, especially if you move through different seasons of life, like summer semester or fall semester. And maybe it may be a tool to orient you to specific activities that are life-giving to you. So refer back to this packet. So let's now talk about some specific strategies for managing your stress. And you've probably already seen some of them on the self-assessment worksheet, but I still want to go over and highlight and go into depth on some of them. So one is exercise. Physical exercise is a very simple way to reduce stress and increase feel-good hormones called endorphins that we all can have. There are different types of exercises to choose from. We can do running, we can do hiking, different sports, swimming, jogging, yoga, just to name a few. And if you haven't been exercising, it's important to start slow and to pace yourself and take a gradual approach. Even 15 minutes of a brisk walk can be sufficient and very helpful. And it's important to make a commitment to be consistent. Consistency is really the key. Try to focus on the process of doing and staying with the physical exercise, not necessarily the results. And of course, expect to experience some discomfort. There will be soreness, there may be some initial challenges, but sticking to the activity and giving yourself several weeks for your body to adjust to the physical exercise is something to keep in mind and as you move forward. And I know that given our current situation, we don't have access to our typical places where we can do exercises and workouts like maybe the gym or the pool, but we still can go on a walk and or even go outdoors for the exercise. And like I mentioned before, consistency is the key. So another way to decrease stress is by slowing down. Sleep, personal time, deep breathing, those are all helpful. And when you are in a stressful situation, whether it's something academic or work related or maybe not, maybe something else, you're probably experiencing a range of physical responses. Your heart may be racing, you may be experiencing tension, and a different array of physical sensations. And those indicate that your body is doing a great job to prepare you to meet the demands for which you need that extra energy. But when the stressor has passed, we need to calm our bodies so that they can recharge. I like the metaphor of cooling off process after a workout. Usually there's several minutes dedicated to cooling off and stretching after an intense workout. We see that athletes or any other um, people who engage in a very rigorous workouts, they implement that practice. So in the same way, after a demanding day filled with responsibilities and deadlines, it's important to take some time to slow down and decompress. And another way to de-stress is to do deep breathing. Deep breathing really slows down our heart rate, which relaxes our muscles and then calms our minds as well. We often take breathing for granted, but it's so vital. You always have your breathing with you. Remember that. And I know that you have the control of the rhythm of your breathing, and that is powerful to know. It will help you regulate your emotions, level of stress, and physical tensions as well. So in just a few minutes, I'll walk you with an exercise, a deep breathing exercise. So let's talk quickly about slowing down to and using sleep to manage our stress. Sleep is crucial. It is to our physical and mental health. So many times, and so many studies have stated that sleep is important to recharge our minds. We underestimate the sleep and oftentimes neglect it, especially during college. I am guilty of that myself. But a good night of sleep can go a long ways in helping you better manage your mood, helping your memory, concentration, and keeping your immune system strong so that way you can be physically healthy and be ready to address your tasks and demands. So if you're having difficulty sleeping, I would encourage you to research some sleep hygiene and look for some well-known recommendations and tips for better sleep. There's a lot out there, and some of them include reducing your caffeine intake, not having any screen time at least half an hour before bed, not having alcohol before going to bed, using your bed to sleep, and not doing any homework or studying on your bed. If that's a possible situation for you, try avoiding that. So again, research, Google, and some of the recommendations for better sleep and try implementing and see what works for you. And another way to reduce your stress is to communicate your feelings. And with that, being able to express your feelings and emotions help you manage them. Meaning that when you're out of touch with your feelings, it can be really hard to know who you are. And perhaps you may feel internally detached from yourself and may experience some anxiety related to that as well. But I would encourage you to learn how to relate with your emotions and feelings. And you can identify a range of feelings and become very acquainted with your unique needs, desires, and yearnings. So that's what emotions are. They inform us about what's important to us. So learning to own and express your feelings does take time and courage and willingness to be vulnerable in the presence of others whom you trust. So it's learning how to identify emotions and how to interpret them. That emotional information will help you be empowered. So, on that note, you can communicate your feelings by sharing those feelings with others who want to hear and listen, as well as through writing or journaling. So, journaling helps people to clarify their thoughts and feelings, that helps them gain valuable self knowledge. And it's a good way to problem solve as well. So, it's helpful to express in various ways your emotions and what you're going through. And of course, another way to temporarily manage your stress is engaging in different distractions. It's not to avoid what you're feeling, but take a pause and then re-engage with a refreshed outlook. And those distracting strategies can be watching different funny videos on YouTube, engaging in a household chore, or doing something productive, calling someone, talking to someone, and then coming back and thinking with a fresh mind about the stressor that you're facing. Another way is to stay connected with other people. Um, so staying connected helps our bodies to respond in a way that we feel calmer, and there's a lot of benefits of practicing paying it forward, showing kindness to others, um, and making compassionate different actions. So people who receive social support and are giving of that social support experience lowering their levels of stress. So practice kindness and stay connected with others as well. And another way is also a balanced way of thinking. I would encourage you to check out our thought wellness for specific skills on how to manage some unhelpful negative thoughts. And also saying no is another way to manage stress. It is helpful to be aware when we're feeling overwhelmed and to build skills on how to respectfully set those boundaries. So going back to our car example, you know that at some point your car will run out of gas and will need to stop. To, you will need to stop and fill up. So in some way, understanding that as human beings, you will need to at some point stop, and that may require saying no to another responsibility, another request that somebody's making on you, and nourishing yourself, recharging yourself. And so it's important to understand what is important to you and your limitations. Because as human beings, we all have limited time, limited resources, limited energy. And but focusing on doing what is most important to you in this moment and things that can wait can help you manage that stress level. And so another way to manage stress is to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is paying attention without judgment to whatever it is that comes up in the present moment of your experience. It is witnessing your immediate experience just as is, without trying to change, react, or interfere with it. It is an attitude of simply observing the ongoing stream of experience without judgment. It is noticing and observing thoughts, emotions, situations, and accepting them, not approving, but just simply accepting them as they are without labeling them as good or bad. Not to try to push something away, not trying to suppress an emotion or change the situation, but first looking at it without judgment and acknowledging, even if it's painful and hard situation. So mindfulness can change the way you deal with the pain, fear, stress in a profound way. There's been a lot of different studies. You can also search on Google or YouTube, and there's a lot of stuff out there. So at present, meditation and mindfulness help different doctors, uh, clinicians use mindfulness to help their patients or clients to manage their physical and psychological pain. So there's a lot of benefits. And I'm going to walk you through a type one breathing exercise, a mindful breathing exercise to tune in into the present moment. So it's a specific type of breathing called the diaphragmatic breathing, or using your stomach to breathe. So if you place a hand on your stomach right now and take a deep breath, And feel your stomach rise and fill up. And imagine your stomach as a balloon, filling up first and then deflating as you exhale. And avoid breathing with your chest and try to breathe through your stomach. So mindfully breathing is one way to practice mindfulness. And doing this mindfulness on a regular basis can be extremely helpful. Just 1 or 2 minutes, you can reap the benefits. So I will walk you through this one type of breathing exercise right now. So if you feel comfortable, join me as I lead. So go ahead and sit down comfortably. If you can kind of sit up upright, put both of your feet on the floor and feel the ground underneath your feet. Feel your feet being grounded and let the shoulders drop. You can either close your eyes or if you feel comfortable, simply focus your gaze on a particular spot in front of you and take a slow, deep breath. Take a moment to notice how you're feeling on a scale of 1 through 10, 1 being no distress at all, and 10 being most distress you have ever experienced. Where would you currently put yourself? Keep this number in the back of your mind as we will be coming back to it later. And taking another long, slow breath through your nose. Slowly exhale through your mouth again. And take a long, slow breath through your nose. Noticing how your stomach rises as you take a full breath. Imagining your belly filling up like a balloon as you bring it in. And then feeling it deflate as you breathe out. As if you're slowly letting the air out of the balloon. Notice how your breath feels cool as you breathe in deeply through your nose. And notice how it feels warm as you slowly breathe out through your mouth. As you continue to breathe, begin counting your breath. Each time you exhale, taking a slow, deep breath in, then counting to 1 to yourself as you slowly breathe out. Again, slowly breathe in through your nose, counting 2 as you exhale slowly through your mouth. Again, breathing in slowly through your nose and counting 3 as you breathe out. Continue breathing in through your nose and counting 4 as you breathe out. Then start over again at 1. You will notice that your mind begins to wander during this exercise. You will start thinking about something else, an upcoming test, an appointment you have later, or maybe even thoughts about this exercise. This is completely normal. Our minds are designed to have thoughts constantly coming in and going. When you notice yourself feeling distracted from your breath, rather than criticizing or getting frustrated with yourself, simply noticing that your mind is wandering, return your attention to your breath and begin to count again at 1. Again, imagining your belly filling up like a balloon as you take a deep, slow breath in through your nose. As you slowly breathe out through your mouth, imagining that a balloon is deflating as you are slowly letting all the air out of it. Continuing to count your breaths from 1 to 4. Again, you will notice yourself becoming distracted. Maybe you notice the ticking of the clock, a sound coming from outside the room, or even maybe distracted by the sound of my voice. This is perfectly normal. When this happens, just return to your attention to your breath. Now, as you prepare to bring your awareness back to the room, noticing any additional sensations in your body, how your body feels in the chair, how your arms feel in your lap, how your feet feel against the floor. On a scale of 1 to 10, again, with 1 being no distress at all, and 10 being the most distress you have ever experienced, where would you put yourself now? So now when you're ready, take a couple normal breaths and open your eyes as you exhale. At this point, you can go ahead and stretch your shoulders and reflect on the first number right when we started the exercise, and then the other score that you just gave yourself. And notice how the 2 has changed for you, if at all they've changed. Do you feel more relaxed? So I just wanted to say, this is just a simple breathing exercise. There's a lot of different breathing guided mindfulness exercises that can be found online, and it takes time to develop this skill. And sounds simple, but I would encourage you to do this exercise on a regular basis for up to 5 to 10 minutes every day in the next several weeks to see the true benefits and results. And that will be beneficial as it is beneficial to many people. So we just covered the deep breathing here. Another point I would like to highlight is how we talk to ourselves counts. What we say to ourselves and our beliefs about ourselves contribute powerfully to the level of stress that we experience. So if you're feeling inadequate and powerless, it is very likely that there are some thoughts and beliefs that you have that you are. So learning how to identify and alter how you talk to yourself and what you feel is very important. So refer to our thought and mood wellness for some recommendations and suggestions around how to recognize some ways that you talk to yourself and how they may impact your mood. So just a quick tip is that when you talk to a friend, you're probably very kind and friendly. And if your friend is going through a tough time when they're struggling, most of us come alongside and try to comfort them by being kind, by being empathetic and encouraging. So we also know that when others treat us in a very validating, kind way, it feels good. So at times we forget that we actually live with ourselves 24/7, and that internal talk and how we talk to ourselves is crucial. So taking the time and effort to changing our self-talk, being more compassionate and affirming is important. Some examples to do that is acknowledging our accomplishments, recognizing our strengths, and giving ourselves credit if we do something well. So all of these affirmations and attitudes of kindness towards self is a very helpful way to practice that self-acceptance, which will produce feelings of empowerment and energy to attend to whatever responsibilities we need to do. And we already mentioned a few things about journaling. So there are some um, a quick journal format that we've put together for you that may be helpful. It's a simple way to journal, and you can take a few minutes a day to do that. So consistency in anything that you do in the self-care is the key. It will go a long way. It's like building a muscle. The time and effort that it requires to build a certain muscle is needed. And so in the same way, practicing self-care on a regular basis will require some planning, some time, and some commitment. So it's important to plan around self-care. There's some online resources here also in your packet, different apps, different websites that you can go that will provide additional support for you. And also on our websites, there are important information about some therapy options if you need that additional support. And you can reach out to CAPS and schedule a consultation and explore your options for therapy. On our website, you can also find some low-cost resources in the community. And of course, if you're experiencing a mental health crisis, please reach out. You can contact CAPS to speak with a life counselor, life crisis counselor, available 24/7. And of course, in a case of emergency, call 911. And also, I would encourage you to visit You at Fullerton. So this resource provides you with a wide variety of self-help tools that will enhance your mental health. So check out those resources, explore, experiment, and see what works for you. And on that note, I hope that you found this information helpful. Check out the other two wellness workshops that we have on thoughts and mood. And thank you for your time, and take care.